Cheating has been a problem in video games for a long time, and as games continue to be more about online interactions and competition, cheating obviously becomes much more of a problem. As new technologies emerge, more people talk about the practical applications of them. So what about the blockchain? Is it something that could stop the less savory elements of gaming? Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx we ask the question, could blockchain put a stop to cheating in video games? So first things first, I don't want to make moral implications about cheating in, say, single-player video games. I don't care. Certainly what you do in your own self-contained virtual world is your business, but if you have a competitive advantage thanks to an aimbot, screw you. We've made videos about cheating in the past, about how it's detected, how people do it, and what kind of consequences are in place for doing so. And frankly, we want to continue talking about cheating because it's important. Again, games are changing, and as they do so, cheating is becoming less an individual decision and something that affects everybody when you do it. Now, everything I've said about virtual currencies and microtransactions and all of these things, I want to put aside for at least a few minutes, but we will return to that. Again, games are rapidly changing and have economies that are very complex, that more closely resemble an actual real-world economy, and in many cases, are actual real-world economies that simply exist virtually. And with every one of those tiny, complex nuances that arrives and adds another link to the chain, there's another potential way to cheat. That doesn't just mean duping online purchases or finding an unsavory way to mine coins, but those are certainly new concerns that have arrived where it was just things like aimbots before, and let's just be very clear, an aimbot is perhaps the worst thing you can do in an online shooter, other than like one of those kill switch cheats. But an aimbot only makes other players' experiences less fun, and is at least a few steps removed from actually affecting the bottom line of a game's money-making potential. The economy elements of a game are more likely to get the kind of attention that you might expect from somebody protecting their money, because that's often what it is. And morally speaking, that money may or may not be something I agree with them making, especially if it's coming from, let's say, a loot box, but I certainly understand why it's often getting attention. Essentially, what I'm establishing is that there's a wide variety of ways to cheat in games, and it continues to grow. The spectrum of cheating is diverse indeed, and thus far, there hasn't really been an all-in-one actual fix for it. And what I'm about to say, I'm not going to represent as the all-in-one actual fix. I'm saying it is something that some people have been talking about lately, and it's pretty interesting. It's called the blockchain, and a very large number of people use it in the Bitcoin economy, which you may have heard of, you may not have. I don't really care to go into Bitcoin because it's strangely enough a very controversial topic, but a blockchain works as such. Every transaction on a blockchain is kept on a ledger, and everyone has a copy of that ledger. You act as a node of that ledger, and if there's a transaction between, let's say, you and someone else, that ledger has to be the same for both nodes for the transaction to go forward. The technology that blockchain is worked on works so that every node is constantly checking those ledgers and the transactions happening on them, and that's the simple explanation. The blockchain essentially creates a proof of ownership, and in an online economy where somewhere between 50 and 99% of all virtual assets available online are actually fraudulent. Yes, that's actually true. That means that a lot of people steal passwords and even identity information like credit card numbers, or even just use computers to spoof a transaction in order to get goods in a game, which is ironically the actual exact opposite of getting good. It's easy to understand how a universally distributed ledger that is constantly checked for inconsistencies, thus creating a proof of ownership, could benefit an economy that suffers from that kind of fraud on that kind of level. If literally half of the transactions or more are fraudulent, that's pretty wild. And it's not just gaming companies that are losing money either. Obviously, being one has to trade in a real currency in order to even buy the fake currencies, as opposed to some sort of token system where tokens can be exchanged for certain amounts of in-game currency, which sounds needlessly complicated, but the point I'm getting at is that you have a credit card connected to the game, and if somebody steals that to use in the game, you lose money, and money ain't easy to come by. While a lot lot of the time, governments are represented as the primary power, creating restrictions upon the people of the world. But in the virtual world, it's more like Valve gets to dictate how you do things, which is not great. If Valve wanted to, they could screw you over very badly. There are numerous stories of people who believe they have been, and there's often very restrictive rules, or even sometimes just silly ones that don't make any sense, that are enforced upon the users of a game, limiting gamers' options in a way that essentially controls them. You can't fight City Hall, and sometimes it's City Hall Incorporated, or LLC, or one of those weird abbreviations from another country, GMB something. Now, as I said, I'm not endorsing this as a solution for cheating. I'm trying to simplify it and explain it to you. And the advantages of using such a system are certainly a degree of freedom that would not be afforded to people when they're under the thumb of, let's say, Electronic Arts or Activision Blizzard or some other company like one of those two companies that has done something recently and bothered people to the point where there's name recognition with the problem. Now, that isn't to say there aren't disadvantages to the blockchain. For one, you would have to worry about another type of currency that you would put into games. And if you bought that currency to use in the game, that means buying a virtual currency to buy virtual currency with. Another big problem is getting popular games to actually implement something that wrestles a lot of the control away from large companies that create popular games. And again, the simplified version of how this could help is simply that the blockchain is a much more decentralized mode of verification of information. If it's a technology that works properly, and up until this point it's been noted to work properly, it would basically make it near impossible to fake things, because those things would be checked against a ledger that is held on a countless number of nodes, whether that's your computer, your gaming console, or whatever. And that could be good, but it could also create new problems. So could blockchain put a stop to cheating in video games? Sure, but is there a motive for companies that benefit from centralizing their power and easily make more money that way to implement blockchains? Maybe not. So it really depends on if you're speaking idealistically or not, because if you are speaking idealistically, yes, without any question, blockchain could put a stop to cheating in video games. But materially, it also actually has to be implemented, and there's not a lot of incentive for that, at least now. Now, it's not impossible. Sony is currently right now looking at using the blockchain to store digital rights data, but I don't know how much everybody loves the idea of DRM over blockchain, as opposed to stopping cheating with the blockchain. I don't know if they're otherwise trying to tie a popular idea, the blockchain, with an incredibly unpopular idea, DRM, but hey, I've heard weirder things. And you know, it's always going to be money over art, my friends. Least as long as things are like they are now. What do you think? Do you think blockchain's a good idea? Do you have a way of getting corporations to implement it? We are certainly interested in your thoughts, so leave a comment. If you enjoyed this video, please click like. And if you're not subscribed now, it'd of course be a good time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is of course a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.